The palace of planet Zoran was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Towering spires of polished crystal reflected the orange light of the twin suns, casting strange patterns across the courtyard. Alien flora swayed as though alive, their leaves humming softly in the warm breeze. The palace itself seemed almost alive, with doors sliding open silently and walls glowing faintly with energy lines that pulsed like a heartbeat. Marcus, a human guard assigned here for reasons he still didn't fully understand, walked briskly through the halls. Marcus was not like the others in the palace. While most guards were alien, tall and strong with shimmering skin and eyes that could detect movement at 50 meters, Marcus was human. Average height, no special abilities, just his wits and training. And yet, he had earned a place here. The aliens respected humans for their unpredictability, their ability to think outside the box. That unpredictability often scared them. Marcus had learned to use it to his advantage. He paused near a corridor that led to the Queen's private chambers. Today, something felt wrong. The hum of the palace seemed muted, the light along the walls dimmed, and even the usual chatter of servants was absent. He had been observing the royal couple for weeks now, King Zalor and Queen Lyra, and Marcus had learned to read subtle cues that many aliens overlooked. Today, those cues screamed danger. He moved quietly to a small alcove near the Queen's chambers. From here, he could see two guards outside the door, their postures tense. That was not unusual. Security was always tight, but the way the guards' eyes flicked toward the king's quarters suggested something more. Marcus's instincts tightened. He had overheard fragments of conversations between palace staff, whispers that hinted at trouble, but now he sensed it clearly. He took a deep breath. A warning, urgent, immediate, was needed. Marcus had no authority over the Queen, but he had something more important: the truth. And if he did not act fast, it could be too late. He stepped out from the alcove and approached the nearest servant. "Is the Queen alone in her chambers?" he asked in careful, measured tones. The servant, a small alien with greenish skin and multifaceted eyes, blinked at him. "She is usually alone in the morning." "Why do you ask, human?" Marcus hesitated only a moment. "Because something is wrong. I think her life is in danger." The alien frowned. "Danger? From whom?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "From her husband." The words seemed to hang in the air. The servant's eyes widened. "Impossible, King. Zalor would never." Marcus cut him off. "I know what I saw. I know what I heard. Please, I need to warn her before she enters the chamber. She has no idea." The servant hesitated, torn between loyalty to the king and instinctive fear for the Queen. Finally, he nodded. "Follow me, but quietly. If the king notices, we could all be—" "I know," Marcus said. They moved swiftly, avoiding the main halls where palace attendants usually passed. Marcus's mind raced. He had only moments. He thought about how to approach the Queen without alarming her or putting himself in immediate danger. Then he saw her, a vision of calm and beauty amidst danger. Queen Lyra stood at the far end of the corridor, adjusting her flowing robes, her eyes scanning the hallway with curiosity. Her silver-blue skin seemed to shimmer under the soft glow of the palace lights, and her hair floated as though it had its own gravity. Marcus stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he called softly, bowing in the human way. Lyra turned, startled. "Marcus, what is it? Why are you here?" He raised a hand to stop her questions. "Please, I must speak to you. Alone, if possible. It is urgent." Lyra's eyes narrowed slightly, suspicion flickering across her face. Urgent? And human? What could be so urgent? Marcus swallowed hard. "Your life is in danger. From the king." Her eyes widened, disbelief and shock mixing in equal measure. "What? That is impossible. Zalor would never—" "I overheard him. He has plans to kill you in your chambers. Today. You cannot go in there." Lyra's mouth opened and closed, words failing her. Marcus could see the fear flicker across her face, but also something else. Curiosity and perhaps the first spark of courage. How do I know you are telling the truth? Marcus met her gaze. I have no reason to lie, Your Majesty. You know me. You know I serve and protect. This is beyond politics. This is survival. You must trust me. Please do not enter your chamber. She took a step back, her hands trembling slightly. I need to understand. Marcus nodded. I know. But first, you must be safe. Once you're safe, I will explain everything I know and we can plan. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. The human instinct in him, so simple, so direct, was oddly comforting. Perhaps it was because humans saw threats differently. They did not rely on ceremony or hierarchy. They acted. And that action, that directness, was what she needed now. Marcus guided her through a hidden passage, one only a few trusted servants knew. The walls hummed faintly as they moved, a soft vibration under their feet. Lyra followed, silent, her mind racing. She had trusted the king, had believed in the stability of their palace, the loyalty of her staff. But now, doubt, fear, and a strange sense of betrayal filled her chest. Why would he want to kill me? She asked, voice barely above a whisper. Marcus shook his head. I do not know all the reasons yet, but I know he has been planning this for weeks, maybe months. He is clever, but humans. We notice patterns, and I notice this one. We cannot. Wait. Lyra closed her eyes for a moment, taking a steadying breath. Then she opened them again, her expression hardening. Show me what to do. If I am to survive, I must act carefully. Marcus nodded, relief flickering in his chest. This was good. She was listening. She was thinking. She was human enough, so to speak, to act quickly. They moved deeper into the palace, reaching a small observation chamber. From here, Marcus could see the queen's chamber without being seen, and monitor the king's movements. Marcus quickly began explaining what he had observed over the past weeks. The way Zaylor shifted the palace schedule, the unusual meetings he held with certain advisors, the subtle threats whispered to staff. Lyra listened, absorbing every detail. I cannot believe I missed this, she said quietly. I trusted him. Completely. Marcus's jaw tightened. Trust is dangerous when the person is planning betrayal. Humans learn quickly to notice signs. You must now do the same. Watch, listen, and act decisively. Hesitation can be fatal. Lyra nodded. For the first time, she felt the weight of responsibility as a ruler, not just a ceremonial figure, but someone who must survive to lead. She glanced at Marcus, admiration mingling with her fear. You are different from anyone I have ever known, Marcus. You are brave. He smiled faintly. I am human. That is what we do. We survive, we act, and sometimes we save lives, even when no one else notices. Suddenly, a faint vibration ran through the floor. Marcus stiffened. He is coming, he whispered. Zaylor is near. We have little time. Lyra's heart raced. Her mind flashed through countless scenarios. What if the king had already discovered them? What if the palace staff were loyal only to him? Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Stay calm. We will do this together, he said firmly. First, you must avoid the chamber. Then we plan our next move. The moment stretched, tense and silent, broken only by the soft hum of the palace energy lines. Lyra took a deep breath, centering herself. The fate of her life, and perhaps the palace itself, rested on the next decisions. Marcus kept watch, his human instincts alert. He knew Zaylor was clever, ruthless, and patient. But humans had a trait that often surprised aliens: unpredictability, and sometimes that was enough to turn the tide. As the king's footsteps echoed faintly in the distance, Marcus whispered, Do not enter your chamber. Not today. Not until we know the full plan. Trust me. Lyra nodded again. Determination, hardening in her eyes. She had survived palace intrigues before, but this was different. With Marcus at her side, she felt a flicker of hope, a human spark that could turn fear into action. The warning had been given. The game had begun. And in the silent corridors of the alien palace, a human and a queen prepared to face a danger that could change the course of history. Queen Lyra sat in the small observation chamber, her silver-blue skin shimmering faintly under the soft energy glow of the palace. Her mind was racing, yet there was a new spark in her eyes, a spark that Marcus had seen in humans when they faced impossible odds. It was determination, and it could be dangerous for those who underestimated it. Marcus studied her quietly, ensuring that she had fully grasped the danger they faced. The king's plan was clever, patient, and deadly. One wrong step and Lyra would be walking straight into a trap she could not escape. "Your Majesty," Marcus began, "we need to move carefully. The king is not stupid. He has allies in every corner of this palace, people who would betray you in a heartbeat if they thought it would help him. We must plan." Lyra nodded. "I understand, Marcus, but I cannot just hide. If I do, the palace may fall into chaos without me. I need to act." Marcus smiled faintly. That spark of courage again. "Act carefully, Your Majesty, and act smart. Humans, and we are good at noticing patterns that others miss. We can use his own plans against him, but you must trust me." Lyra took a deep breath. She had always trusted her own instincts, but Marcus's human perspective was different, fresh, unpredictable, and precise. "Very well," she said. "Show me what to do." Marcus began by explaining what he had learned in the past few weeks of observation. The king had a network of loyal palace guards, advisors, and artificial intelligence systems that controlled security. Every movement, every schedule change, was carefully calculated. Yet, in all his planning, Zaylor had underestimated two things: the human ability to improvise and the queen's courage when faced with immediate danger. "First," Marcus said, "we need allies inside the palace. People who are loyal to you, not him. Then we gather information and evidence. Only then can we confront him or defend ourselves. Acting blindly will get us killed." Lyra nodded again, determination hardening. "I know a few who may be loyal. The Chamberlain, Terra, and my personal attendant, Selin. I trust them." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Trust is good, but we confirm loyalty first. People act out of fear sometimes. We need certainty." They spent the next hour sending subtle messages through the palace's hidden communication channels, using human codes that the aliens could not detect. Marcus taught Lyra to read patterns in the palace staff's movements, tiny tells that indicated loyalty or suspicion. Lyra was quick to learn, surprising Marcus with her keen observation. By the afternoon, they had identified a small group of allies, Terra, Selin, and two other palace staff members who had quietly resisted Zaylor's orders in the past. It was not many, but it was enough to start their plan. Marcus explained the next step. "We need proof, evidence of the king's intent. Nothing too obvious, nothing he can trace back to us, but enough that we can use it if things go wrong. We cannot confront him blindly." Lyra nodded. The king often reviews palace plans and personal orders from his private chambers. There are records there, in the AI system, but access is restricted. "That is perfect," Marcus said with a hint of a grin. Restricted systems often have vulnerabilities. Humans notice these flaws because we think differently. "I'll show you." Over the next few hours, Marcus guided Lyra through the palace's hidden passages, teaching her how to access information without alerting security. She marveled at the human ability to improvise. Marcus could bypass security protocols using simple logic and intuition, things aliens never considered. "See this?" Marcus whispered, pointing to a console in the king's private corridor. "It seems ordinary, but notice the pattern of energy pulses. There's a delay we can exploit. Step lightly here and the system will think it's normal activity." Lyra followed his instructions carefully, her heart pounding. She had never worked this closely with a human before, but Marcus's confidence was contagious. Together, they accessed files showing the king's secret meetings, his plans to manipulate palace security, and subtle instructions meant to isolate and intimidate Lyra. "This is enough," Marcus said, scanning the files. "This is proof that he intends to act against you, but we need more. We need to understand exactly when and how he plans to strike." Lyra looked at him, determination shining. "Then we watch, and we wait." The days that followed were tense. Marcus and Lyra moved carefully through the palace, observing, noting patterns and quietly rallying their allies. Marcus introduced a new concept to the alien staff: human unpredictability. Small, seemingly illogical moves that threw the king's loyalists off balance. At first, the palace staff were skeptical. Humans were strange, unpredictable, and their methods seemed reckless. But Marcus's results spoke for themselves. The queen survived near traps, avoided ambushes, and discovered hidden communications that exposed the king's small cadre of loyal conspirators. Lyra began to grow bolder. Marcus taught her to use small human tactics, misdirection, subtle signals, to allies and calculated risks. She learned quickly, surprising even herself. Her confidence grew, and with it, the morale of their small band of allies. "We cannot act openly yet," Marcus reminded her one evening. "The king is clever. He will notice any sign of rebellion immediately. Patience is key. Humans are patient when it counts, and that is what we must do." Lyra nodded. "I trust you, Marcus. You have shown me another way, a way to survive and fight back." He smiled faintly. "Humans are strange that way. We survive because we act even when everyone else doubts us, and sometimes we win because we do things no one expects." Then came the breakthrough. Using a combination of observation, subtle surveillance, and Marcus's human intuition, they discovered the king's next step. Zaylor intended to isolate Lyra completely in her chambers during a routine inspection, then strike using a specially trained guard squad and modified security drones. It was a perfect plan, except Marcus had noticed a tiny flaw. The timing of the drone activation was slightly delayed, enough for a human or a quick-thinking alien to exploit. "This is our chance," Marcus whispered, "but we must be precise. One wrong move and the plan fails. We need a trap of our own, but hidden. We cannot be obvious." Lyra considered this, her mind sharp and calculating. "We can use the palace layout to our advantage. The hidden passages, the observation points. If we predict his movements, we can turn his own plan against him." Marcus nodded, impressed. "Exactly. Humans see patterns where others see order. We predict, we improvise, and we survive. And sometimes, we win." They began laying the groundwork for their counter-strategy. Marcus coordinated with the small group of loyal staff, giving them subtle instructions that only they could understand. Lyra moved as if unaware, pretending to follow the normal routines while secretly preparing for the confrontation that would come. Each day, they gathered more intelligence. Marcus taught Lyra to read the king's behavior, his gestures, pauses, and subtle commands. She began noticing things she had missed before: the slight narrowing of his eyes when he suspected disloyalty, the subtle tension in his shoulders when a plan was risky. And then came the small victories. A misdirected patrol of guards walked into a harmless corridor believing Lyra was there. A drone, programmed to scan for intruders, passed by harmlessly because Marcus had anticipated its path and manipulated the control signals. "Every small win counts," Marcus reminded her. "Humans understand that. A battle is not always won with brute force. Sometimes it is won with observation, patience, and small, clever actions." Lyra began to feel a strange thrill. This was more than survival. This was strategy. And she had never felt more alive. But Marcus knew the danger had only grown. Zaylor was clever, patient, and ruthless. He would notice soon, and when he did, their actions would provoke his full wrath. "Patience now, Your Majesty," Marcus said one evening. as they watch the king from a hidden observation point. We act when the time is right. Too soon, and we fail. Too late, and he may succeed. Timing is everything. Lyra nodded, her eyes bright. I understand, Marcus. Together, we can stop him. Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Humans are strange that way. We fight when others hesitate, and sometimes we survive impossible odds. I believe we can do this, but only if we stay smart, careful, and unpredictable. Lyra smiled faintly, a mix of fear and determination. Then we wait, and we watch, and we survive. The palace hummed around them, unaware of the secret alliance forming within its walls. A human and a queen, united against a king's deadly plot, quietly prepared for the day when cunning, courage, and human unpredictability would be their greatest weapons. The palace of Zoran, usually a place of elegance and order, now felt like a maze of danger to Marcus and Queen Lyra. Every hallway, every shimmering doorway, every humming wall carried the potential for betrayal. Marcus had spent days studying the patterns of the king's guards and the palace's AI-controlled systems, and he knew one thing. Zaylor was clever, patient, and ruthless. He was waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Marcus and Lyra had gathered their allies in a hidden observation chamber, a small room with walls of translucent crystal that allowed them to see parts of the palace corridors without being seen. Tara and Selene, two loyal palace staff, stood beside them. The human's presence, or in Marcus's case his human presence, had already caused some unease among the aliens. But in this crisis, his intuition and quick thinking had earned their respect. We need to anticipate the king's next move, Marcus said, his voice low and steady. He will try to isolate you, Your Majesty, and then strike. We have to be ready. Lyra nodded. I understand, but we cannot just hide. If we hide, he will assume control over the palace. We need a plan that is both defensive and offensive. Marcus smiled faintly. That spark of human logic, the kind that ignored tradition and relied on action, was exactly what they needed. Exactly. We prepare a trap of our own, but it must be hidden, precise, and quick. One wrong step and the king's plan succeeds. Zaylor's strategy was complex. He had altered the schedule of the palace inspections, ensuring that Lyra would be alone in her chambers during the late afternoon. The king had programmed the security drones to activate at that precise time, and a specially trained squad of guards would be stationed nearby, ready to strike. Marcus had studied the drones' programming. They rely on predictable patterns. Every patrol, every scan is timed exactly. But humans notice patterns that others cannot. If we act just outside their timing, we can move undetected. Lyra studied the map of her chambers and the surrounding halls. We can use the hidden passages to move. The drones cannot detect every entrance. We create our own pattern, something they cannot anticipate. Marcus nodded. Good. And remember, humans are unpredictable. That unpredictability will be our weapon. Aliens often fail when things do not follow expected patterns. We will exploit that. The day of the planned attack arrived. The palace was calm, the usual hum of activity masking the tension beneath the surface. Marcus and Lyra moved carefully through the hidden passages, their allies following silently. Every step was calculated. Every sound could betray them. As they reached a corridor near the queen's chamber, Marcus paused. The king has likely checked these passages. We must act fast. Lyra's eyes narrowed. I trust you, Marcus. What do we do? We split, Marcus said. Tara and Selene will create small diversions in other corridors. That will pull the guards and drones away. You and I will move closer to the chamber, unseen. Lyra swallowed, her heart pounding. Are you sure this will work? Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Nothing is certain in life, Your Majesty, but we have a better chance than waiting. Trust the plan. Trust me. They moved forward. Tara and Selene activated small holographic decoys in distant corridors, drawing the guards' attention. The security drones, programmed to scan for motion, redirected their patrols toward the decoys. For a moment, the palace seemed empty, silent, and strangely still. Marcus and Lyra slipped through the hidden passage, reaching the corridor outside the Queen's chamber. Marcus's heart raced. He knew Zalor had anticipated something, but he had miscalculated the human element. Unpredictability. Inside the Queen's chamber, Zalor waited, a sly smile on his face. He had carefully calculated the timing of his strike. Guards stood at strategic points, drones hovered silently above, and a trap was set to close in the moment Lyra entered. The king's confidence radiated from him like a dark aura. Yet Marcus's human intuition had noticed a flaw. The timing of the drone activation was slightly off, a delay of half a second. It was a tiny margin, but enough for someone agile and observant to exploit. That half second was all Marcus needed. He whispered to Lyra, "Stay calm. When I signal, move quickly. Do not hesitate." Lyra nodded, her body tense but ready. She had learned much from Marcus: observation, timing, and human improvisation. Today, it would all be tested. Marcus gave a subtle signal, and Lyra stepped into the chamber, but not where Zalor expected. The drones activated, scanning for movement, but Lyra was already past their detection field, thanks to the hidden passage and Marcus's careful timing. The guards reacted too late. Marcus had anticipated their positions and manipulated the environment slightly, causing small holographic reflections to distract them. Confused and delayed, the guards missed their chance to strike. Zalor's eyes widened. "Impossible," he hissed. "How did she—" Marcus stepped from the shadows, his calm human expression unnerving the king. "Good afternoon, Your Majesty," he said. "I believe you miscalculated." The king's hands trembled slightly. He had expected the predictable, slow reactions of aliens, not the sudden, unpredictable moves of humans. Marcus's intervention had disrupted everything. Lyra moved, with confidence now. "Your plan fails, Zalor. I will not be your victim." The king's loyalists tried to react, but Marcus had already predicted their movements. He directed Lyra to cover and used small, clever distractions, throwing objects, activating lights, and redirecting drones, turning Zalor's own strategy against him. The palace chamber became a whirlwind of movement, yet Marcus remained calm. Every action was precise, calculated, human ingenuity at its best. Lyra followed his instructions, moving in ways Zalor could not anticipate, evading attacks and keeping herself safe. The final phase of the trap came when Zalor attempted to corner Lyra near a reinforced wall. Marcus acted instantly, using a combination of a hidden control panel and subtle manipulation of the palace's AI. He locked the door behind them and redirected the drones. The king's surprise was total. His perfect plan had collapsed in moments. "You," Zalor growled, fury and fear mixing. "This is human trickery." Marcus shrugged slightly. "We call it survival, Your Majesty. Humans survive because we act when others hesitate. We improvise when others predict. We think differently. That is what you underestimated." Lyra stepped forward, her voice strong. "You are defeated, Zalor. Not by brute force, but by intelligence, strategy, and courage. You cannot control everything." The king's face twisted with rage, but even he knew the truth. His plan had failed. His loyalists were confused and demoralized. The drones, once instruments of fear, were now useless against human unpredictability. Marcus and Lyra did not waste time. They quickly secured the chamber, using it as a temporary stronghold while they regrouped. Terra and Selene rejoined them, bringing news that the king's minor loyalists were in disarray. The palace's complex security system, which had once been Zalor's greatest advantage, now worked in their favor, manipulated by Marcus's understanding of timing, logic, and human intuition. Lyra looked at Marcus with a mixture of awe and gratitude. "I cannot believe we survived. Humans are remarkable." Marcus smiled faintly. "We are strange, Your Majesty. We survive because we act when others hesitate, and sometimes We turn the impossible into possible. Even as they celebrated the small victory, Marcus knew the danger was not over. Zaylor was clever, patient, and ruthless. He would not give up. But today, humans had shown that courage, intelligence, and unpredictability could challenge even the most meticulous plans. Lyra felt a new sense of confidence growing within her. She had been a queen in title only before, but now, with Marcus's guidance and human ingenuity, she realized she could act decisively, survive, and even fight back. Marcus's presence reminded her that humans were different, yes, but different in ways that could change the balance of power. They did not fear uncertainty, they thrived in it, and that was exactly what she needed to survive Zaylor's schemes. The palace was quiet again, the immediate danger over. But Marcus knew it was only the beginning. Zaylor would regroup, plan again, and attempt another strike. Humans and humans inspired. Tactics had won this round, but the war of wits was far from over. Marcus placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. We have won today, but we must remain vigilant. The king will act again. We must be ready. Lyra nodded, her eyes bright with determination. Then we prepare. Together we will not fail. Humans. You may be strange, Marcus, but you are exactly what I need. The palace of Zoran had never seemed so tense. Every corridor, every door, every glowing panel now carried the weight of impending conflict. Marcus and Queen Lyra moved cautiously through the halls, accompanied by Terra and Selene. Their small band of loyalists had grown slightly, as more palace staff began quietly observing Zaylor's manipulations and seeing the strength in human-led strategy. The immediate danger of the king's trap had passed, but Marcus knew this was only the beginning. Zaylor was clever, patient, and ruthless. He would regroup and strike again, and this time they could not afford to be reactive. They needed to confront him before his schemes escalated further. We need to act decisively, Marcus said, his voice low but firm. The king is calculating and patience is his ally. If we wait, he will strike again. But if we plan carefully, we can end this before more lives are at risk. Lyra nodded, her silver-blue skin shimmering under the pale lights. I understand. But how do we confront a king who controls so much? Every guard, every drone, every system seems to answer to him. Marcus smiled faintly. Exactly why we act differently. Humans don't always follow the rules. We improvise, we adapt, and we exploit weaknesses that others overlook. That is our advantage, and today we will use it. The plan was simple in concept but difficult in execution. Marcus had studied the palace systems, the positions of loyal and disloyal staff, and the routines of the king himself. Timing, coordination, and unpredictability would be crucial. Here's what we do, Marcus explained. We draw the king into the council chamber under the pretense of a meeting. Then we control the security systems to limit his options. His loyalists will be confused, and the ones who are unsure will hesitate. That hesitation will be enough for us to confront him directly. Lyra listened carefully, absorbing every detail. The weight of responsibility pressed on her, but she also felt a strange thrill, a human-like sense of strategy and courage. And if he refuses? She asked. Marcus shook his head. He will not refuse. Kings like Zaylor crave control. But even if he does, we have contingencies. Humans always have contingencies. As afternoon approached, they set their plan in motion. Lyra moved openly through the palace halls, appearing calm and compliant, while Marcus and the loyalists worked behind the scenes. Terra and Selene subtly adjusted security protocols, creating confusion among the guards. Marcus's human ingenuity had found minor flaws in the palace's AI-controlled drones, and he exploited them to reroute patrols at just the right moments. When Lyra arrived at the council chamber, she found Zaylor waiting, a smug smile on his face. "Ah, my queen," he said smoothly. "I see you follow protocol perfectly. How dutiful of you." Lyra kept her expression calm, her voice steady. "I follow protocol, Your Majesty, but I also expect honesty and loyalty from those around me. Tell me, How are you planning to secure the palace today? Zaylor's eyes narrowed slightly, suspicious. Do not be clever, Lyra. You have nothing to fear. Marcus, hidden just outside the chamber in the observation passage, signaled subtly to Lyra. It was time. She took a step forward, confident, controlled, and ready. Inside the council chamber, Zaylor attempted to assert his authority, sending commands to guards and drones, but Marcus had already manipulated the control panels, rerouting the drones, and creating delays in the guard patrols. Confused and frustrated, the king's loyalists hesitated. That hesitation was all Lyra needed. Your schemes are exposed, Zaylor, Lyra said firmly, her voice echoing through the chamber. I know of your plans to isolate and harm me. Your traps have failed. Your loyalists are confused. This palace no longer obeys only you. The king's face twisted with rage. Impossible. How could you know who has betrayed me? Marcus stepped forward from the shadows, calm and precise. Humans notice things others overlook, Your Majesty. Patterns, delays, weaknesses in systems. We act when others hesitate. That is why your plan failed. That is why your traps were useless. Lyra's loyalists began taking positions, subtly blocking exits and securing the chamber. Zaylor's attempts to regain control failed as Marcus had anticipated every move, exploiting the half-second delays, the minor misalignments, and the king's predictable reactions. The confrontation escalated. Zaylor lunged toward Lyra, attempting to seize control physically, but Marcus was ready. Using a combination of timing and improvisation, he intercepted the king, holding him back just enough for Lyra to step aside. The king's own guards, confused and hesitant, faltered. You humans, Zaylor spat, struggling. You are unpredictable. I cannot control you. Marcus shrugged. We are not meant to be controlled. We survive because we act, not because we obey. And today we end your schemes. Lyra's eyes shone with newfound determination. You will not harm me, Zaylor. Not today. Not ever again. I am the queen, and this palace is under my protection. You underestimated the courage and ingenuity of humans, and that is your downfall. The chamber became a whirlwind of movement. Marcus directed Lyra and the loyalists with precision. Drones were redirected to contain the king's remaining loyalists. Guards loyal to Zaylor hesitated, unsure of what to do. Marcus had prepared signals that only Lyra and the allies understood, creating confusion and delays. Using clever improvisation, Marcus managed to corner Zaylor in the chamber, limiting his options. The king's fury was evident, but his control over the palace had crumbled. Lyra stepped forward, holding a data tablet that contained evidence of his plots, orders, and secret manipulations. All your schemes are recorded, she said. The palace knows your intentions now. You cannot hide. Zaylor's eyes darted around, realizing he was trapped, not by force but by strategy, intelligence, and human ingenuity. Marcus spoke, quietly, yet firmly. Your Majesty, humans are not just soldiers or guards. We survive, we adapt, and we act when others hesitate. That unpredictability is our greatest weapon. You underestimated it, and today, it saved the Queen's life and exposed your plot. Lyra's loyalists secured the king, ensuring he could not escape or command his remaining loyalists. Marcus's subtle manipulations of the palace systems ensured that every move he tried was blocked or delayed. The king, powerful and feared for decades, was now helpless against the combination of human strategy and the Queen's courage. Lyra looked at Marcus, a mix of respect and gratitude in her eyes. I underestimated humans, she admitted softly. Your ingenuity, your courage, it saved me. Marcus shook his head. We are strange that way, Your Majesty. We survive because we think differently, and sometimes, that difference is enough to change the course of history. The immediate danger over, Lyra called a full council meeting, this time with Marcus and the loyalists present. Evidence of Zaylor's schemes was laid bare before all the palace officials. The king's plots, once hidden and subtle, were now exposed. Even those who had been unsure of their loyalty could see the truth. Zalor's attempts to manipulate the council failed. Human strategy had introduced chaos and unpredictability into his carefully controlled palace, and he could no longer command obedience. Lyra addressed the council, her voice steady and authoritative. "This palace is no longer controlled by fear," she said. "We will survive, we will protect each other, and we will ensure that no one, not even a king, can manipulate or harm those under my care. Today we have seen the courage and ingenuity of humans, and it has saved us all." The council members, both human and alien, murmured in agreement. Marcus stood beside Lyra, a silent testament to human ingenuity and courage. Even as the palace returned to a semblance of calm, Marcus knew the war was not over. Zalor was clever and patient. He would attempt other schemes, other manipulations, but the queen was no longer naive, and the humans had demonstrated the power of adaptability, strategy, and courage. Lyra turned to Marcus, determination in her eyes. "Together, we will protect this palace, and we will ensure that no one underestimates the courage and ingenuity of humans again." Marcus smiled faintly. "Humans are strange that way, Your Majesty. We act when others hesitate, we adapt when others fail, and we survive when others fall. That is what makes us human." The palace hummed softly around them, a quiet reminder of the battles fought, the intelligence and courage displayed, and the human spark that had changed the course of history within its walls. The sun of Zoran cast its warm orange light across the palace as Queen Lyra stepped into the main council chamber. The atmosphere was tense, but filled with cautious hope. After the confrontation with Zalor, the palace had been buzzing with whispers. Humans had intervened. A queen had survived against the odds, and a king's carefully laid plans had been undone. Marcus walked beside her, calm and watchful. His presence, once unusual and unsettling to many of the alien officials, was now a symbol of intelligence, courage, and strategy. Humans were no longer merely guests or curiosities. They had proven themselves as allies capable of saving lives and influencing outcomes. Lyra took a deep breath. "Today," she began, her voice steady and commanding, "we begin a new era for this palace, one where fear does not rule, and loyalty is earned, not demanded, and one where courage and intelligence, regardless of species, are valued above all else." The council murmured in agreement. Even those who had supported Zalor reluctantly nodded. The truth was undeniable. The humans' actions, their strategies, and Marcus's quick thinking had prevented disaster. Zalor, now confined under strict guard, could do nothing. His schemes had been exposed, his loyalists hesitant or disarmed, and his control over the palace system severed. He had underestimated the unpredictability of humans and the courage of a queen willing to act decisively. Marcus had anticipated the council's reaction. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "we must be careful in how we deal with him. Zalor may attempt to manipulate or incite unrest even now. Strategy, patience, and clear rules will protect the palace better than anger or force." Lyra nodded. "You are right, Marcus. He will face consequences according to palace law, and no one, neither king nor outsider, will threaten this place again." The next hours were spent carefully reviewing evidence and testimonies. The council examined the data Marcus and Lyra had collected: secret plans, altered orders, manipulated security protocols, and recorded interactions that proved Zalor's intentions. Each piece reinforced the truth. The king's crimes were undeniable. A vote was held, not to punish out of vengeance, but to ensure the safety and stability of the palace. By unanimous agreement, Zalor was stripped of power, confined under strict supervision, and placed under a council of loyal officials who would oversee his actions. The palace would continue, free from his manipulation. Lyra felt a sense of relief. The immediate threat was gone, but the work to rebuild trust and reform the palace had just begun. She turned to Marcus. "I could not have done this without you," she said. Marcus smiled faintly. "Humans survive because we act when others hesitate. Sometimes that is enough to change the course of history. You did most of the work, Your Majesty. I just helped make sure you survived. The palace underwent reforms in the following days. Security protocols were adjusted to allow human oversight in critical areas. Marcus trained a small team of palace staff, both human and alien, to respond to emergencies in ways the king had never anticipated. The palace systems were upgraded, with input from human reasoning. Patterns, improvisation, and adaptive responses were incorporated into AI routines. Lyra found herself learning from Marcus in unexpected ways. Humans did not rely on fear or tradition to maintain control. They relied on observation, strategy, and courage. That approach was now part of the palace. The human's way of thinking is unusual, Lyra said to Marcus one morning as they reviewed the new security protocols. But it works. The palace is safer, more efficient, and more adaptable because of it. Marcus shrugged. We are strange that way. We improvise, adapt, and survive. Sometimes we inspire others to do the same. Word of the human intervention spread beyond the palace walls. Other alien leaders who had heard of Zaylor's plots were amazed by the Queen's survival and the humans' ingenuity. Many sought alliances with humans, recognizing that their unpredictability and courage could turn impossible odds in their favor. Lyra began to see a new path forward. Humans were no longer outsiders. They were respected, trusted, and capable of shaping events in ways aliens rarely considered. Marcus, once a simple guard, had become a symbol of human ingenuity and courage, someone whose ideas and strategies would influence Zoran for years to come. Despite the victories, Marcus remained vigilant. He knew Zaylor's cunning could not be ignored entirely. The king would attempt to manipulate, observe, or plan again, but with the palace now reformed and loyalists aware of human tactics, any future schemes would face serious obstacles. Your Majesty, Marcus said one evening as they observed the palace from a quiet balcony. We've won today, but intelligence, courage, and preparation must continue. Humans survive because we do not assume victory is permanent. We plan, we adapt, and we act. Lyra nodded, her eyes reflecting the twin suns. I understand. And with humans like you here, I feel confident that no one can threaten this palace again. You have changed history, Marcus. He smiled faintly. Humans are strange that way. We act when others hesitate. Sometimes that action changes everything, and sometimes it inspires others to act as well. In the weeks that followed, Lyra continued to solidify her leadership. She established councils that included humans in decision-making roles. Marcus trained selected palace staff in human style. Strategies, observation, improvisation, and adaptive problem-solving. Even aliens who were initially skeptical began to see the value of human methods. The palace, once rigid and controlled by fear, became a place of collaboration and intelligence-driven security. The Queen's confidence grew, as did her trust in humans. She had survived Zaylor's schemes not because of strength alone, but because of courage, observation, and the human spark that Marcus had introduced. Zaylor, confined under supervision, watched helplessly as his palace adapted without him. His plans, once meticulous, had failed because they relied on predictability, control, and fear. Humans, Marcus had shown, did not follow those patterns. They acted, adapted, and survived when others hesitated. One day, Zaylor asked Marcus quietly, "Why did you interfere? You are human, not my queen's loyalist. Why risk your life?" Marcus looked at him calmly. Humans survive by acting when others hesitate, and sometimes we fight to save others even when it is dangerous. You underestimated what humans are capable of. That was your mistake. The king said nothing, only glared, but he understood the truth. As the palace settled into its new order, Marcus was recognized not just as a guard, but as a strategic advisor and trusted ally. He had demonstrated the value of human thinking, intelligence, courage, unpredictability, and adaptability. Lyra, too, had changed. She had grown into a confident, decisive leader, one who trusted both her instincts and her human allies. Together, they had not only survived a deadly plot but had reshaped the palace's future. The twin sons of Zoran sat on the palace, casting long shadows across the halls. Humans, once considered outsiders, had proven themselves as capable, intelligent, and courageous allies. And in the quiet of the observation chambers, Marcus and Lyra reflected on the journey that had brought them here. "Today, we changed history," Lyra said softly, her hand resting on Marcus's. "Because of human, and because of you." Marcus smiled faintly. "Humans are strange that way. We survive, we act, and sometimes we change the world. That is what we do." The palace was safe. The queen was strong. And humanity, once underestimated, had proven its worth in ways the aliens of Zoran would never forget. In that moment, Marcus knew that humans, brave, unpredictable, and ingenious, would always have a place in the universe. And that place had just begun with this queen and her human guard.